The Devil's Rocking Chair comes from unknown origins, but would come to the possession of the Glatzel family in the early 1950s in Brookfield, Connecticut. For 30 years the rocking chair would sit as a regular piece of furniture in the home, until July of 1980 when it would become the centerpiece of tragedy. David Glatzel, who would be 11 at the time, would become possessed by a demon, waking up screaming and describes seeing a man with big black eyes, a thin face with animal features, jagged teeth, pointed ears, horns, and hooves. It should be noted that everyone who knew David would say, he was not the kind of kid who liked scary movies, and was not the type to make things up. David being visibly shaken and withdrawn, his older sister Debbie would ask her fiancé Arnie Johnson, to come stay with her and her family in hopes of getting David out of his depressed state. Arnie agreed to come stay with the family, but things would not get any better. Arnie would report hearing strange unexplained sounds coming from the attic, and David would continue seeing this man with black eyes who promised to take his soul. Strange bruises and scratches would appear on David's body, seemingly to only happen while he slept. David would claim to start seeing the man with black eyes in the daytime, rocking back and forth in the rocking chair, David being the only one who could see the demon, while the family on the other hand would see the chair rocking on its own. The family would find David at times rocking in the chair quietly and looking to be in some kind of a deep trance. The family would have their home blessed by a priest, but this would only seem to make things in the home worse. The strange sounds in the attic intensified. David's encounters with the demon became more frequent, and began hissing and speaking in different voices to his family. In one of these voices David would tell Arnie, "You're going to do something terrible." David even began quoting Paradise Lost, which was claimed to be a book he was not familiar with, or most other kids his age would be familiar with at that. David would awaken every 30 minutes, sometimes having seizures, which would lead to the need of someone having to watch him throughout the nights. The Glatzels, being desperate for help, would reach out to Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens would make frequent visits to the home accompanied by priests whom they would help perform exorcisms. Many of the exorcisms would even take place with David sitting on the rocking chair, and many witnesses would claim to see the chair levitating with David in it. These witnesses would include the family, clergy members and the Warrens. The chair would start to move more on its own, even disappearing from its spot in the home to different areas of the house. As things began to intensify more and more, the final battle for David's soul would begin when the exorcism sanctioned by the Connecticut Diocese sent a priest to the home. David would be held down in the chair by his family while being looked on by Lorraine Warren and rites being administered by the priest. David would grow more and more violent, even striking the priest as the priest would splash holy water on him. Frustrated and fatigued, Arnie would scream to the demons to, "Take me on, take me," repeatedly, when all of a sudden David would show signs of relief. However, for Arnie, he would begin to show similar signs David would during his possession, things such as aggression, growling and hissing, and long periods of trance-like states. And on the day of February 16, 1981, Arnie would end up stabbing his landlord Alan Bono 22 times with a 5-inch pocket knife, leading to Alan's death a couple of hours later in the hospital. Arnie would be found 2 miles away from the crime scene walking down a road in a trance-like state, when an officer would find him, and Arnie would tell the officer, "I think I hurt someone." This would lead to being America's first time in legal history that demonic possession would be used as reason for murder. Judge Robert Callahan, however, would not accept this plea, being there was no evidence to show that Arnie Johnson was possessed. Arnie Johnson would be sentenced 10 to 20 years in prison for first-degree manslaughter, and would only end up serving 5 years for good behavior. By the way, if any of this sounds a bit familiar to you, this story was made famous by the movie, Conjuring 3: The Devil Made Me Do It, but we all know how Hollywood likes to inflate their meaning of true stories, hence why only some might sound familiar. But anyway, David was believed to be possessed by 42 demons, while some claim he was possessed by the actual devil himself. The Devil's Rocking Chair today sits in Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum, which he purchased from the Warrens Museum for $67,000 in 2019, and the chair still has the stains of the holy water and oils used in David's exorcisms. It is said that whoever sits in the chair is, quote, suddenly stricken with incapacitating sciatica or abnormal back problems, some so badly they needed surgery. Zach Bagans would say there is an evil presence surrounding the chair, and would explain how even before it was displayed, it was causing problems to the building. Not long after it arrived at his museum, doors would shut and lock themselves, light switches physically turned off, and created tension between staff members that were in the area of where the chair was stored. the delivery man who picked up the chair, was plagued by terrible nightmares after coming into contact with it. For a final note, not long after purchasing the rocking chair in 2019, Zak Bagans would end up closing his exhibit to the Devil's Rocking Chair, due to a series of visitors becoming dramatically affected by it, including Zak in his own home. Zak Bagans would say, "This is the first time where I have decided to shut an exhibit down at the Haunted Museum due to multiple people being affected in connection to unexplained paranormal activity of the Devil's Rocking Chair," Bagans said. 6 people all shared the same disturbing, uncontrollable crying during the short time I opened the exhibit, one of them being a guest who also collapsed directly above the Devil's Rocking Chair on the stairs. The Devil's Rocking Chair exhibit has since been reopened. If you plan on going to Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum and seeing this chair for yourself, I wish you all the best. Thanks for watching. Bye!